All right, so I saw this movie at a thing called a fan event, and basically they gave us these mini posters here. I think this is pretty cool. But then they also showed like a bunch of like bonus content, they called it at the beginning, which had like these weird interviews. They're not even interviews, they were just like trivia games with the cast, and then they also showed this Demi Lovato music video. The whole theater was silent after all that played. Like, nobody knew what to make of it. So.
Garbage Day! Huh? No!
Scream 6 is once again directed by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett. It stars Melissa Barrera, Jenna Ortega, and Courtney Cox, among a whole host of other characters. It's a massive cast. This movie involves our two primary characters, Sam and Tara, moving to New York City to escape the past of Ghostface and all the trauma they've experienced, and now they are dealing with a new Ghostface killer once again, who has invaded their new lives and all of the gory fun that comes with that. Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to my review of Scream 6. Before we get into the review, I'll just kind of give you a brief history of what I think of the series. So obviously the original Scream is a classic. It's the only horror movie that's sort of meta, in my opinion, that really works. You know, it's a lot of fun. You know, the humor is very good. It's got Matthew Lillard and Skeet Ulrich showing up as the killer at the end. I don't think that's a big spoiler because it's been out for over almost 30 years now. But, you know, the first movie's a classic, so there's no disputing that. Pretty much all the sequels after were pretty mediocre, in my opinion. I don't really like Scream 2, even though I know a lot of people enjoy that one. The only one that kind of came close was the last one that came out, which was just called Scream. Instead of Scream 5. That one was sort of more what I wanted out of this series because it's got, like, you know, a more gritty tone. It's got, it's not as annoying with the self-referential meta humor. Although it did make a very stupid decision, in my opinion. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen the one from last year, called Scream, but killing off Captain Dewey was a lot. I didn't really enjoy that because he was my favorite character of the original group, so I thought that was a mistake to kill him off because he had the most depth, I thought, of anybody. But anyway, I did enjoy that last one to a certain degree. I didn't think it was great, but it did what it needed to do. So now we come to Scream 6, which I was actually anticipating quite a bit because this is like the first one since the first movie to kind of change it up a little bit. You know, it's in New York City. It's more so following the new characters than the old group. Courtney Cox does return in this one, which I don't really like her that much in the rest of the series, so I really didn't care that much there. But you know, this one seemed to be more fresh than the rest of them. I am happy to report that it was good. I liked it. There are a couple minor issues, but overall I enjoyed myself. The biggest thing with this movie that I enjoyed was, without getting into spoilers, I thought it was a lot harder to figure out who the killer was going to be. You know, with the last movie, I called who the killers were within like 10 minutes of the movie starting. And I thought that was going to be a red herring for, you know, what the actual reveal was going to be. But, you know, it just ended up being exactly who I thought it was going to be. And with these movies, the whole gimmick is that you don't know who it is until the reveal. And I thought this movie did a much better job of kind of keeping you guessing right up until the last second when they do reveal who it is. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. Also, this is by far the bloodiest movie in the series. I was like really I enjoyed the amount of blood in this movie, which is funny because at first I kind of had the same issue that I did with Cocaine Bear a couple weeks ago in my review of that, where it seemed like they were doing these kills and cutting away like before anything happened and kind of just implying the violence, which, you go to a slasher movie, you want to see the kills. So I thought they were going to be doing that. I was like, oh no, what are they doing here? But right after they just go full force with the blood and the gore, so I was happy with that. Also, without again getting into things too much, they make a choice during the first 5 minutes of the movie as far as like just reveals go, and I was just like, oh no. I thought they were doing something really stupid, and I was happy that like right after that happened they subverted that and it's not what you think. So I was happy with that too. All the new characters are good. I think Sam and Tara, those two are really good sort of centerpieces to follow with this new series. There's a lot more, I feel like there's a lot more kind of internal conflict with those two than there was even with like Sydney in the old movies, because Sydney was interesting in like the first couple, but then it just kind of became stale after that. So I do enjoy the new cast quite a bit. I actually didn't even hate Courtney Cox in this one, surprisingly. I felt like she pulled back on the like obvious I'm a reporter angle. And what I mean by that is like her whole character in the other films was just that she's a reporter. And she has nothing else to her, and she's constantly making annoying lines that just don't serve any purpose to the ultimate conclusion of the movie. So I felt like they toned that down in this one. It also helps that she doesn't really have that much screen time anyway, so I was fine with that. Obviously, Neve Campbell is not in this one due to her salary dispute with the producers. I mean, it sucks to not see her, but I mean, I feel like this new series is about the new characters anyway, so I don't care as much about with this series at least seeing the old cast, because I'm also just sick of nostalgia bait movies at this point, so I don't really need to like constantly have these same actors return just because they were part of the original. Just make a good movie and I'll enjoy it. That's my main thing. One character that I was happy to see return was Kirby, played by Hayden Panettiere, I think that's how you say her name. She was in Scream 4, and she was one of the best characters in that movie, and I didn't really care for Scream 4 that much, but I really liked her in that. She comes back here and she's still great. I think she's one of the highlights of the movie for sure. There's also a sequence in this movie that takes place on a subway train in New York, and man, it was one of the more tense scenes I've seen in a slasher movie in quite some time. That was a great scene. I like that these two new Scream films seem to take themselves a little more seriously than the old films. They don't go too overboard with the, we're in a movie meta humor. There is one character who was in the previous one, Chad's sister. She's kind of the Jamie Kennedy of the new series, where she's like explaining the rules and she's providing all of that humor, and she doesn't go overboard with it here, so I can accept it. It's just a trope of the series. Although I don't need to see another scene, like if they make another one where they explain the rules again. Like, stop it. We've seen the same movie 6 times at this point, basically. So you don't need to do that scene necessarily. And honestly, the movie's not breaking any new ground. It's the same formula as the rest of them. It's basically the same structure that all 6 films have followed. So it's not gonna blow your mind, but in terms of just a solid entry in a series that I think has been pretty mediocre at times, I think this one's pretty good. It's probably actually my favorite since the first movie. So yeah, I did enjoy most aspects here. I also just really enjoyed the New York setting this time. It just provided a lot of visual variety that wasn't present in the last movie, at least, because, you know, they all take place in Woodsboro, and, you know, that's not really a location that provides much in terms of what you're looking at. It's just supposed to be kind of the suburban neighborhood, and it worked in like the first film for sure, but I felt like it was time to change things up. It kind of reminded me of Jason Takes Manhattan, you know, the Friday the 13th movie, but in that movie he doesn't even get to New York till like the last 20 minutes, and so the rest of the movie spends on a fucking boat. But this movie, the whole film is in New York City, and they utilize the location very well. Like I said, with the subway scene and a couple other scenes that I won't spoil if you haven't seen the movie. But this movie's just really, it's shot well. It's just pleasant to look at. Before I get into my final verdict, I will mention this movie received an unnecessary 3D conversion, because you can tell it was a conversion. They did not shoot this in 3D. You know, the whole time there's like some decent depth, I guess, to the frame, but, you know, I can tell because I know a little bit about how 3D capturing is done. It looks like that they didn't really focus on finding a convergence point when doing the conversion, and that what that means is what your eye is focusing on in a 3D frame to kind of adjust the rest of the frame to have depth and to have things pop out, and just to really immerse you in what you're seeing. And James Cameron obviously does that amazingly with Avatar and every 3D thing he's done. But obviously I think they just added 3D here because, and it was obviously a last minute inclusion because they saw how successful The Way of Water was, and now this is it's gonna be another wave of mediocre 3D conversions, just like back in 2009 when the first Avatar came out. Because I love 3D when it's done well. I think it can really draw you into a narrative and enhance your experience as a format, but it has to be, you have to either shoot it in 3D or you have to do a hell of a conversion and really nail it. And it just felt so tacked on here, so I really, it was completely unnecessary. But with all that being said, I'm going to give you my final rating. I'm going to give Scream 6 a 7 out of 10. I thought it was enjoyable. I really thought that this movie kind of brought some freshness to the series again. Obviously, it's not deviating from the formula at all, but it's just a solid, good slasher movie. I think you should go see it if you're a fan of the series, or if you just like slasher movies in general, but don't go in expecting anything amazing. So that's going to do it for my review here. Next week will be Shazam 2, and then the week after will be John Wick Chapter 4. So we still got more movies coming out. I'll see you guys then.